You're listening to the Southern Gospel News Podcast, the most listened to gospel music podcast in the world, with your hosts, Darren Sutherland, Southern Gospel Hall of Famer Arthur Rice, and I'm Daniel Britt from Homecoming Radio. Now sit back and relax as you listen to SGNP. Welcome to the Southern Gospel News Podcast. I'm Daniel Britt with Darren Sutherland and Gospel Music Hall of Famer Arthur Rice. By the way, president of the SGMA is with us. Now, you may not see Arthur, but you're going to hear him on this show for those watching by way of television today. But we have a special guest we're going to introduce in just a moment. Speaking of Arthur, Darren, he has been stepping out into another podcast world these days, and Arthur's got something to tell us.
That's what he said. He's cheating on us.
Well, I was a guest. They called me kind of out of the blue. It's two DJs from here in Asheville that I grew up listening to. I mean, they're both in their 80s, and they've been doing this for 60 years. And back when I was a kid, radio was it. I mean, we had like two radio stations here in Asheville, WWNC and SKY. That was the two stations here in town. Through the years, they played all genres of music, but when I was growing up, they were playing country. And then every hour they would have a hymn time, and they would play a gospel song. And that was their only, outreach for gospel music at that time. And then one of them had a show on Sunday morning, gospel hymn time for 3 hours. He played gospel music, and that was all we had, at the time. And as a kid, and to meet those guys, for them to call me and ask me to come be a part of their show, it was so cool to sit down and talk to some of my heroes, and it was just amazing. One of the guys is Randy Houston and Dave Hogan, and so they have a podcast that they kind of started. And they talk old school and old radio and all music and history and all this kind of stuff. And I just wanted to put a shout out to them, and I appreciate them allowing me to come. It was like it was a bucket list thing that I didn't even know I wanted, that I didn't even know I had. Right. It was just really, really cool. And so, I got a kind of chance to love on them and just tell them how much I appreciate.
When radio was fun, I mean, they still make it fun. And that's the key. Is if you're real and you have that freedom. Yeah,
exactly. And, as being a DJ, you don't hear a lot of the people that you touch and a lot of the lives that you touch. And, but they have their podcast. It's on YouTube, and it's called Open Mic with Dave and Randy. So if you get a chance to look that up, and they've kind of been just kind of got started over the past year. And so, but I think you'll enjoy them if you'll follow them. I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
I'd love to do that. I got to ask you a question though, and maybe you already knew this, but when you grew up listening to radio, and then you finally met the radio voice, the human behind the voice, you
looks
were either
like
that's right. I could say you were either disappointed but it was usually beyond your wildest dreams, and then you had this weird thing where you went back to listening to them on the radio, and you had the old picture in your brain, and then you had the new picture, and you were like, well, which one do I like better?
You are exactly right. Because anytime you hear somebody on the radio, if you don't know what they look like, your mind automatically kind of creates somebody that looks like that voice in your head, Yeah. And so you're right, to meet the real guys. But it was a really cool moment, and to get to talk to those guys. It was a lot of fun.
Darren, anybody ever say anything to you when they would meet you after hearing you on the radio?
They
ever offend you?
It was funny when I was on the radio, and then I did a TV show a while, and I was actually single when I was doing a TV show. This woman called me and said, "You don't look nothing like you sound." And I said, "Is that good or bad?" And she said, "You're a lot fatter on TV than you appear on radio." So,
did you tell her radio made you skinnier?
That's what I said. That was back when I weighed 326 pounds too. So now I'm down to 216 and looking svelte and pretty. And I'm sitting out in front of a Buc-ee's, guys, in Leeds, Alabama. So doing this
Wow.
podcast, I figured
And
if I was going to pull over and do this interview with Miss Jeanette because she's a superstar, then
Yeah.
I needed to
yeah,
pull over that someplace every Southern gospel star in America goes to now, and that's Bucky's. Everybody goes to Bucky's. You know what I'm saying? People take their picture in Bucky's. There's the
That's right.
Bucky's, folks, right there. There you go,
yeah.
Bucky's.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, hey, we are talking to Jeanette Cook of the Cook family today, and we're going to jump right into that conversation. She's already on the guest line, ready to talk, and we'll be right back here in just a moment with her. In the meantime, make sure you check out the Facebook page, see what's happening, there's a huge archive of past episodes at southerngospelnewspodcast.com. Make sure you bookmark it, go there, and check out that full archive. And of course, we're really thrilled to have the legendary Jeanette Cook coming up in just a moment. Straight ahead on Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Gonna hold my body down, ain't afraid. Gonna hold my body down, well, when you hear that trumpet sound, gonna get up out of that ground and don't pray.
Hey, it's the Southern Gospel News Podcast. Welcome back to the main segment, the main highlight of today's show. Arthur Rice is here. Darren Sutherland's here. I'm Daniel Britt. And I'm going to let Darren take it from here and introduce one of our favorite people in all the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what, Daniel and Arthur, this is honest to truth, okay? We've interviewed 165 different people. Everybody from the late Charlie Daniels, last week Pat Boone, the late Peg McCamey, Ivan Parker, T. Graham Brown, and tons of them.
Yeah.
But there's been a few folks that I really get excited about interviewing, and today is one of them. Miss Jeanette Cook of the Singing Cooks. And you know why I've always loved the Cooks? And I'm going to just say this before we get started. They do things the way they want to do things and the way the Lord leads them to do things. They don't worry about what a record company says. They don't worry about what a distribution company says, what a booking agent says. Miss Jeanette and Hubert, they just got in the car or in the bus or in the van, and they went from point A to point B and told them people about Jesus and how there ain't no grave going to hold her body down. Miss Jeanette, I'm so excited that you took time out of your busy day to join us. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's just great. And I'm glad you called. It tickles me to death. And so anything you want to ask me, I'll try my best to answer.
You know what, Miss Jeanette? I want you to tell a story. You told me this. I interviewed you about 25 years ago, and you told me this story. She's reconnecting there, guys. You told me this story about 25 years ago about how you and your late husband made y'all's first cassette, and y'all taped it, and y'all ran a wire through the family Bible sitting on the coffee table at the house. Tell that story if you can recall it, if you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'll tell you the first story. We made a little 45, and we made it with some money that we'd got back from, the government, $135. And we made a little cassette tape with 2 songs on it. Now,
Yeah,
we made the album, our first album was
yeah,
run through the Bible in the bottom of Assembly of God Church.
right.
And that's where we made our first album.
Neat,
Wow.
neat. How long you been at this, Miss Jeanette? How long you been singing this?
I've
Singing.
been on the road on the road 62 years.
Wow.
Wow.
What is
Wow.
When,
what's the biggest changes you've seen in those 62 years?
it's been a lot of big changes. It's harder to get into places. And of
Yeah,
course, all these years, 62 years, I have done our booking.
Yeah.
And me and Dad, we started in 1962. He worked in the coal mines at that time. But in 65, he left the coal mines. We went full time, and we're full time yet. Now, he said, honey, when anything happens to me, take the boys and go on. That's what I have done. This is one group that has never separated in no form, just by my husband leaving us and left a hole in our group that will never be filled.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
me and the boys, we went on, still we're going on. And
Nice.
so I won't ever say that I'll uh, retire, because
Right?
probably I'll just fade away.
There you go. Daniel, what you got?
You know, I got to know Eva May Lefevre in her later years, and she would and I told this story just last week at my son's graduation party. Somebody was asking about like Mylan, her son, and I was tracing that, the family history of her singing back to standing on a milk carton in her daddy's street preaching, preaching on the street corner, and she was 3 or 4 years old singing. What was your beginning? What was your introduction that you knew you had a voice, that you had a message to get out there? Was it back to childhood for you?
I started singing when I was 11 years old and playing the guitar in my
Okay.
dad's church.
Yeah.
What's the first song you remember singing, Miss Jeanette?
One that I really liked and I never ever recorded it. He will make the flowers bloom.
Well, when I first went to Kingsman, we worked with the Cooks a lot, about every other weekend. Seemed like there for a long time, and boy, we just loved working with them. And they were just great family, always great to be around, and I just loved to hear them sing, and they were just a lot of fun.
Miss Jeanette, you're one of your songs that everybody loves is "Ain't No Grave Gonna Hold My Body Down."
Well,
And,
now that was the first song that
yes,
me
ma'am.
and Hubert ever recorded.
Really?
That was the first one. And I met Brother Claudia, who that wrote it, when I was 14 years old.
Wow. I was. You're gonna laugh at this story. See, I grew up in little country churches like you. Okay.
Uh
and
huh.
and I had a cousin that went to this one of them mega churches. So I went to that mega church with them, and they're up there playing contemporary music, and I'm a Southern gospel guy and a bluegrass guy, and I was like, well, I'm just singing along because it's still church, you know. And then all of a sudden they do this little contemporary song, and they tie that verse, "Ain't no grave gonna hold my body down," and I looked up and it was a girl named Molly Skaggs singing it. Have you heard that contemporary version of "Ain't No Grave Gonna Hold My Body Down" that people are doing now? Did you even know
Yes.
it was out?
Yes. I heard her do it. She done a fine
And
job on it.
she did awesome. And I looked around, and all these people are just singing, and I'm sitting there thinking, y'all think she does this good? You ought to hear Mama Cook do this song. Mama Cook does this better than anybody there is.
Oh my
I
goodness.
remember, Miss Cook, we had you in concert one time in Smyrna, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta.
Uh huh.
And I think it was 2 years in a row we had you. And on both occasions, Charles Johnson and the Revivers was with us.
Uh huh.
And you and Charles would always do a duet together. But do you remember doing that? It seemed like it was "Take My Hand, Precious Lord" or
Probably
something
that.
like that.
Probably that was it.
Yeah,
Or I can't even walk without
yeah,
you holding my hand.
That
yeah,
was one of them. Yep.
yeah. What are some of your memories, Miss Cook, that just, when you think about your 60 plus years of singing, what are some of the first things that comes to your mind about being on the road and places you've been and things that you've seen and things that you've witnessed?
Well, the Lord has blessed me so that we got to go to the Holy Lands. I've been into 14 different countries, and the Lord blessed us to go to Canada, and we was in 12 different Indian nations up there, and God has blessed us to buy 3 brand new buses, and God's blessed us to have homes, and
God sure has blessed me to have his boys. So that's how good God's blessed us through the years, because I always depended on God, because, without him, we're nothing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No doubt. I've
We
often
had a lot
said
of
this,
good
Miss Cook, and
times
I'm gonna
with
be a little.
groups. We had a lot of good times. With Mull's singing convention, we sung with
Oh yeah.
about all
Yeah,
the groups, about every one of them.
I've often said this, Miss Cook, being funny, okay, and I'm just being funny here and cutting up because we cut up and laugh a lot, okay.
That's good.
Well, I've often, when I've seen that picture of your boys and you standing there, I've often said, if I was to ever get in a fight with anybody in gospel music, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with your boys because they look like the Duke boys on the Dukes of Hazzard that could take care of business if they needed to.
And I'd say they could. Yeah,
I'd
I'd
say
say
that's
they
Uh,
could.
yeah. We
You
did
know,
we did that song. Well, and our choir did that song, "Ain't No Grave," a few
yeah.
months ago for the first time, and I found your copy of it and played it for them. And a lot of them had never heard it before, and buddy, they just loved it. I said, now you think this version is great? I said, you're going to hear the original version of this song, and they loved it. I mean, they loved it.
Well, I appreciate that. It makes me feel good.
what would you say the hardest thing about traveling with your family day in and day out is?
I've not really had hard times. God's blessed us so good, but I, a lot of times it was hard to leave home, when the sun was shining out beautiful. It's hard to climb on the bus and go. But then during that COVID stuff, had to
Yeah,
stay in. I told
yeah.
James, I said, James, I've got to get back out to my people and I've got to ride that bus. And he just took me down the road one day and in the bus and brought me back. Oh
That's
gosh.
funny.
But
You,
we've had a lot.
Darren mentioned that you saw a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes through the years. What would you say for this next generation? If you've got grandkids or great grandkids, I'm talking, a 10-year-old kid right now. Life's different than it was when I was little and when you were little. But as far as the music is concerned, I'm going back to my earlier question about when you grew up with this music. If you've got kids today that aren't growing up with this kind of gospel music, what advice do you have for parents or grandparents? How important would you say this music is? Because we have a singing faith. The Christians have a singing faith. It's scriptural, and you can look through generation after generation of recent history and see that we've always sang through hard times. And so I just want to hear your thoughts on that. Children, younger generations, and the music that you and I love.
Well, they'll definitely go to a different type of music. Our music will gradually die down. And that's bad to say, but the younger people, they don't go for our type of music no more.
Why do you think that is, Miss Cook?
Well, I really don't know. Of course, my music, I guess, the way I was raised up, Then, of course, Hubert, he loved bluegrass and had a bluegrass group at one time when he was
Yeah.
younger. But we're living in different times. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't believe it'll be long before Jesus will come to get us.
Yes, ma'am.
Won't that be wonderful?
If yes, it would. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we can have fun, we can cut up, we can praise him, but he's coming to get us soon, and there's no doubt about that.
We
I
can
asked.
always we can always have fun.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
because we're Christians, that don't mean that we have to dry up like a bone.
There
We
you
Right.
we
go.
can laugh. We can have a good time.
What are some of the things outside of gospel music that you do that are fun to you? I mean, I know you live up there in Tennessee. Please don't tell me you're a Tennessee Volunteer fan. What do you like to do? Do you like watching TV? Do you like watching football or wrestling or anything like that?
No, I like Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I like
There,
Gunsmoke.
there you go.
Well, the one that took us nationwide was he rose me over the tide.
Yeah.
And
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
one that took us nationwide. And
What?
Muller was always
What?
good to work us all through the
Yeah.
80s. We didn't hardly weren't no churches. It was all auditoriums.
Yeah. When did it ever hit you? I mean, I know you said y'all went full time in '65, but where were you at, and what were you thinking when you looked at Hubert and said, I think we've made it, so to speak, that we're actually doing this for a full time? Because there's, don't take this the wrong way. Women naturally worry, and you had to worry when y'all went full time. Was you go? I mean, it's natural to worry, but at what part of life did you stop worrying and thinking, well, God's going to take care of us and we're going to sing and He's just going to open the door? Do you remember ever thinking that?
Well, Hubert was a good manager, and it scared me to death when he
Yeah,
start talking about another new bus. But anyway,
That'll scare anybody.
he
Yeah.
done
Well.
what he wanted to do, and Hubert never did want to go big time. He didn't talk about nothing like that. But he was a good man, I'll tell you. I miss him so bad.
I loved that he always wore a corsage. He always had a corsage on his jacket, it seemed like, and he wore bright colors back in the day. I can remember him when he came sing for me one time in Smyrna. He had a purple jacket on, and I
Oh,
thought that was the coolest jacket I'd seen in a long time.
I love it. I love it.
What about that? Now, I wore the corsage all the time.
Yeah, that's right. You wore the corsage. He had the bright jacket on. What made you
And
start wearing the
I'm so
corsage,
glad y'all
Miss
called me
Cook?
and talked to me.
Well, we're glad you spent some time with us, and we know you got a busy day and other things going on. So thank you for your time, Miss Cook, and we'll talk to you soon. Tell Ronnie we said thank you for setting this up.
Okay, and may God bless
Hey,
you.
Arthur, any final words?
Yes, yes. Hey, we love the Cook, love the family. We love you guys and appreciate y'all. Thank you for always loving on us and being nice to us.
Well, God bless y'all. We love y'all.
There we go.
That's
There we go.
Jeanette Cook. You're listening to the Southern Gospel News Podcast, and what a treat to have her on and to hear some of the stories from that many. I mean, when she said 30, it was a slip up. When you asked her how long she'd been singing, and she said 30 something years, I knew right quick. So, we got to redo the math on that, and that is a legacy for sure.
You know what? I
Um,
want to. I want to thank my buddy Jonathan Buckner with Chosen Road for hooking us up with Jeanette.
yeah,
He got a hold
yeah,
of Ronnie. He got a hold of Ronnie and made that happen. I'm not. Ronnie told me how old she was, but I'm not going to embarrass Miss Cook. He said
uh,
his mama'd kill him if I told her age. But let's just say this: she got me beat, and she don't have Arthur beat, but she's got you beat too, Daniel. But man,
okay,
she's been doing this 60 something years, guys.
Yeah,
wow.
60. Arthur, could you imagine being on the road in one of them buses 60 years? I mean, you've been singing gospel music your whole life, basically. You got, 20 years singing at a theme park. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? So you didn't, I mean, yeah, you traveled in the winter. You traveled 90 days a year in a bus, but you didn't travel 365 days a year in a bus. What is that like for somebody to be in a bus 60 years? What is that like?
That's a long
It
time
is a long time.
to be
Well,
uh, to be be riding the bus, but
you touched on humor, and Arthur, I wonder if you would agree with this. I have a friend who says missionaries, when they come home from the mission field and they go around with their little slideshows to all the churches to raise money, they're
Mhm.
pretty serious. Missionaries, they do a serious work. They're in sometimes hostile countries, and they've got somber stories to tell. But he says, if you ever get missionaries off by themselves together with each other, you'll find out they've got dirt under their fingernails, and there's humor there because you got to laugh to keep from crying in some of those hard situations. And then I
Yeah,
think of that, and you would carbon copy that or transpose that over into the gospel music world. And I would say if you put 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 people on a bus, week in and week out, sure, you might wear a corsage. You might wear a three-piece suit. You might put on your cufflinks and be in tip-top shape when you're presenting the gospel on the platform. But afterwards, down the road at the KFC, you got some humor. You got to laugh. You got to get through the many, many miles.
absolutely, absolutely.
I'll tell you guys a story that I heard I don't even remember who told it to us. Maybe it was, y'all correct me. Maybe Kevin Spencer told us the other week, Arthur. I can't remember. But we were talking about the Cooks, and they said Tony Green was sitting there, and they were sitting there, and they had one other group on stage, and everybody, they're in Charleston, South Carolina. Arthur, maybe it was you. I can't even remember. And said everybody got up, and it was just as dead as a doornail. And then the Cooks got up there, and that place just erupted like you'd never seen. And Tony Green and looked at Kevin or whoever it was and said, "Man, I don't know what we're doing wrong, but that lady just won this crowd over with one verse." I've seen her do that.
I
You
have
know
seen
what
it.
I'm
Oh,
saying?
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. That's wild. That's wild.
I've seen her do it. Well, guys,
My,
I hope we can clean this one up and make it a good podcast. I apologize for the tape delays and the reloads and all that. Keith, we're gonna have fun. Our producer's gonna have fun cleaning this one up.
you know,
Arthur,
if the technology was a little bit stronger, I would have and I'm not saying I disagree with her. I would have gently pushed back or re-engaged her on the topic of the modern versus the old school stuff, because we had just talked about the song, the old song, Ain't No Grave. Now you look at how many different artists have come and recorded that
Yeah.
throughout our lifetime, and now even new artists are, and they're putting their own spin to it. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's the same old song that's been made new again because of some new packaging. And to me, that's just the power of a song, right? I mean, so the song's going to live. The style may change, but then there's also a little bit of what's old is new again. And I think
Right.
that is what we're seeing too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
no
Yeah.
doubt,
yeah. So that gives me
no,
hope.
no doubt. Arthur, before you get out of here, you got a big TV special coming up, man.
Yeah.
You're now a TV star. Tell folks about that.
We're doing the induction announcements for 2024. We're doing them for our streaming event June the 4th. I believe that's what it is. Or, yeah, June the 4th is that Tuesday. Starting at 8 o'clock, you can watch the NQC streaming. You know, we do that every year. We used to do the DVDs. Then when 2020 happened, you know, we kind of did away with those and kind of went to the streaming events. So if you want to hear who is going into the Hall of Fame, you'll need to watch that. It starts at 8 o'clock Eastern time. It'll be on Facebook and YouTube. It'll be on NQC's website, be on SGMA website. You can watch that event, and you'll be able to hear as we announce, as Clark and I announce exactly the inductees for 2024.
Can we guess today? And will you give us a yay or a nay if we guess? Will you
Uh,
give me and Daniel one guess apiece?
I'll give you all the guesses you want.
Will you
I just
confirm
can't.
or deny the guesses?
Well, I'll tell you what. If you'll say the names, I'll nod
Okay.
on my side.
Okay.
If you're right, can we do that? Will that work?
That'll
Oh, wait a
work.
minute. I'm not doing video.
No,
That'll
that's
work.
right. That's funny.
I'll get Daniel, this is no joke. And
Yeah.
Arthur, you'll figure this out. I will get 10,000 questions on social media about who's in the Hall of Fame and that I actually know. And folks, I don't know. Me and Arthur are buddies, but Arthur never tells me up front, and he's good like that. And it's like I tell people, I'm not going to back him in a corner either. He knows who I think ought to be in the Hall of Fame. I've told him before. But you know what? Hey, here's what you can do if you want to have some influence in the Hall of Fame. You can join the Hall of Fame. You can sponsor the golf tournament. There's a bunch of different ways. Just call the SGMA offices, and you'll sell them a sponsorship for the golf tournament tomorrow, won't you, Arthur?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we will. Absolutely.
Hey,
We'll let them.
and
We'll
for
let
all
them
the
play too.
artists. And for all the artists that think Darren just runs his mouth, Arthur, I'm gonna say this to pat my own self on the back. How many years now have I sponsored the golf tournament for Southern Gospel News Podcast? How many years have we done it? I think since the first one, have we not?
First one. Yep. Absolutely.
We love
Well,
this
hey,
music.
it's sgma.org or what,
Yes.
865-908-4040. Is that right?
That's right.
All right,
That's right.
865-908-44. That's an easy phone number. No
Now,
excuses. SGMA.org.
now, Arthur, we picked on you for a second. Let's turn the tide on Daniel for a minute. Can we, before we get out of here?
For sure.
You know, last week, Daniel couldn't make the show with Pat Boone, or 2 weeks ago. We didn't do a show last week, but he couldn't make it because he was over in Nashville at the grand opening of Bill Gaither's new Sirius XM studios, okay? Daniel is,
Because you know he bought the whole satellite. That's the
he
rumor
bought the
that
whole
keeps going
satellite.
around.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel, is it
He's the
true?
new owner of SpaceX.
That's right.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's right.
Is it true, Daniel, that since you worked for Homecoming Radio, you went in and canceled all these groups that they're saying they got canceled? Are you the person responsible for this because you run Bill Gaither's radio stuff? Are you responsible for canceling all these other people and now going to cause them financial hardships? Are you
Well,
responsible for that?
if I held up the parking deck receipt for $35 that I had to pay for that shindig, would that answer your question? For 2 hours, it was $35 to park. So there's your answer.
There we go. There we go. You know what? People are. You know, here's what I've noticed about some of this stuff, and we probably just need to end the show because I'm just rambling at this point. But people get so tied up on the craziest stuff, and folks, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is celebrate Jesus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Create great Christian entertainment that uplifts us all. You follow what I'm saying? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
inspires us.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to remember, you know?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you're supposed to be the next Collinsworth family, God up above is going to see that you're the Collinsworth family. You know,
Yeah.
I've often said this, Daniel, and Arthur, I'm going to pick on you real quick because I can say this. There's not a better man in Southern gospel music than Arthur Rice. Arthur Rice could very easily get aggravated because he wasn't on all the Gaither videos, because certainly he had the talent. But guess what? Arthur is proud of where the Lord's put him, and that just encourages me. So thank you, Arthur. I'm not blowing smoke. I'm just saying how the world works.
It is. It really is.
And whether you call it humility or whatever, I think being open to learn, if you never close the door on learning, and I'm not talking necessarily like formal education, I'm just saying, obviously there are some hard black and white issues that do not change in Scripture, and that's the first thing people will come and bark about whenever you start talking like this. But but opinions are like noses; everybody's got one, and so if you have an opinion, that's fine, but be willing to hear somebody else's opinion, because you may have limited knowledge on the subject, and the other person may have limited knowledge, but together maybe y'all can figure out, well, there may be a third or fourth reason that this is happening. And to me, that just makes the world a lot more fun. If you can leave an open door for some other knowledge to come in there. And again, I'm not talking about, blurring the lines of Scripture. That's a whole different topic. But on what we're talking about every day with gospel music and who's singing and why they're singing that song and why they didn't sing this song and why are they using a tambourine and why is the color carpet red?
Well, I am about tambourines the same way J.D. Sumner was about organs. There will be no tambourine at my funeral. I promise you that.
I already ordered mine on Amazon yesterday, just for that occasion.
I will get into this another time. I've got Ed Enoch lined up to do an interview with us in coming weeks, hopefully.
That'll be fun.
But I'm reading JD's autobiography again for the first time in 20 years. And there is some telling information in that book that applies 25 years after him and Bob Terrell wrote it. And what we can learn from some of these older folks, we can still apply it to today. And that's what's cool. That's what's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll have to look that up.
Well, guys, Daniel, we need to get out of here. We've been around 45 minutes, and Keith's going to have 30 minutes worth of work on this bad boy. And I'll probably have to, I'll probably have to pay overtime and everything else. But you know what? It's been fun. And I appreciate Miss Jeanette coming on with us today.
No doubt. No doubt. So check out the website. And what you've heard today is just the tip of the iceberg. If this is the first time you've listened, there is so much more. It predates me. I think predates Arthur. I mean, Darren's got a whole library here of different talent, different people, and some folks that may, make you raise an eyebrow. Like, why are they on a Southern Gospel podcast? And then you listen and you find out why. And it's really, really cool what you've got here, Darren. Southern Gospel News Podcast on Facebook, on the website. Check it out, bookmark it, tell your friends.
Arthur, and one last thing. What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
We'll talk to you next week, folks, on SGNP.
Hold my body down. Whoa, when you let